every single team meeting that we have here, and every single time I work with an organization, and every single time I talk with a client about their business, it ends up in one question, and that is, what the fuck are we doing here on this planet? Because ultimately, as much as we think we're here to make money, we're here to get everything in order, we're here to make sure that everything rolls, the question right after that is, why? Why is it that we want all this? Because ultimately, if we don't have an answer to the question, why do we care? Why does it matter? Why do we want to have an X amount in the bank? Or why is this program so important and why not? And very often we won't have words to that answer. That's okay. But if there's no deep sense of why, minimum, the answer should be, well, because I feel it so strongly, then what's the point? Now, today on Sacred Conversations, Jakko and I are going to talk about the ultimate question, and that is, what does it mean to be human? I don't have an answer, and I'm pretty sure that we might not find an answer in this hour that we're going to talk. I was journaling about it this morning in my book, thinking, well, I need to be prepared for this podcast recording. All night this question came up, what does it mean to be human? And in my theology studies at Aberdeen University, I am following a course called What Does It Mean to Be Human? And that question stuck with me because my first thought is, so now I'm going to have a course about what it means to be human. Ooh, I hope I get some answers. And the second thought is, I'm not sure I will. I'm actually pretty sure it's just a let's spin our mind around it. Now, I'm pretty sure that this topic will come back. And that over the course of the next few months, I will have more ideas, different insights. But And this morning when I was journaling, the first thought that came was, what does it mean to be human? That we're going to die. That was my first thought right after. I will never have an answer to that question. And I'm really curious what your thoughts are around this topic.
It's a good thing that you didn't prepare me for this topic. So I'm completely surprised about it. And so it's really from scratch that I will think about an answer. And it implicates a lot because first, if you say, what does it mean to be human? You could also compare it to what does it mean to be a dog or a plant, a tree or a hedge or a root of grass or something. So that's already very different from being different from other species.
Yeah.
And so are we just evaluated in a way that we are more capable of being aware of things than other species, if we know already? Because
Evaluated by what or by whom?
Evolution.
Oh, evolution.
Yeah.
Evolved.
Evolved.
Evolved. Okay, evaluated means kind of judged.
Yeah.
I'm going to take off my glasses because they itch in my eyes. Okay.
Yeah. So that's already a big thing, to be not only a living creature but also having so much awareness about everything, if you want. It's even an enormous task, or spending your time being aware of all things, and maybe some people are more aware about a lot of things than others, but even then there's so much we can imagine all the time, and imagine a future happening, imagine that there were things in our past, and even from the things we experience right now, it's only a part of it. So we can also imagine what we don't know yet, even in this moment.
It
So
always
it's a lot.
puzzles me that.
And
Yeah.
but what does it mean to be human? It's we are living, and that's something that we know. But there was a moment, even not that long ago, that I was waking up and I thought, okay, this is another day I can spend. And what does it mean? So, as an experiment, I tried to imagine that I was not living, that there was no life in my body.
What was that like to imagine that?
So, just lay in your bed and then try to imagine that there wasn't life in me, that I was not living, that there was just this body.
Okay. Dissociation at will, I would say.
Yes, yes. And so for a few minutes only, and then from a moment that you decide, or I decided to, okay, but now I'm just living like I am, and I experienced this difference because I could feel the life force in my body. So by imagining that there wasn't a life force in my body, and then experiencing which things are happening in my body, in my brain, in my consciousness, it made such a huge difference that it was really possible to feel how big this life force is. And normally, I don't think about the life force in me. So normally it's just how it is. So it is not really something you can be surprised about or.
It's interesting. What you're describing is actually that you were deliberately creating contrast, right?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of conversations about people who say, well, that tree is big. But if there would only be one tree, we have a tree in the orchard here. You can't see it right now, but it's a huge walnut tree. It is really big. But we can only refer to it as big because we know other trees. Because otherwise it would just be the tree it is. It's like this cup is a specific size and it is only big in comparison to this cup. But in comparison to another cup, it might be small. So all these ideas around what something is, we discover that through contrast. It is a nice temperature here. But if it's cold, that is in comparison to something else. And if it's warm, it's in comparison to something else. It is what it is until we also know another side. And then we start to describe things as dark or light or black or white or big or small. So it's only in the contrast that we understand. So it's really interesting to me that if we want to figure out what the life force is, and I'm not sure we actually are able to distance ourselves from it, but we need to do something. So you created an experiment where you tried to distance yourself from the life force to see if you could become aware of it. That's incredibly interesting. And it also makes me think, would only humans be able to do that? Science says that we are the only ones with a brain that is capable of doing that, but I'm not sure because I am not a dog, so I don't know. I don't really know what's going on in the dog. And I can't think, and of course this is not my field of research, but I cannot understand an experiment where we would be able to perceive ourselves as the dog. Same with, I was walking in an art shop a few weeks ago, and I was looking around and I saw all these beautiful colors and pencils and pastels and paint, and I was thinking, do I see the same thing as anybody else? And we will never know. We will never really know. We will never understand if the quality of what I see is the same as the quality of what you see.
Yeah. So in a way, all studies we make about other species or other people is a form of behaviorism, because you can only see what happens, what reactions are, and describe that, and then
we can only
pick your
assume
conclusions
that
from
would
it.
be the same. Yeah, and I do believe that science is incredibly important and that certain things will always be the same, right? Like if I drop something, it will fall. So we can determine why that happens and how that happens, and we can experiment. So we can assume that if I see a red button here on the thing, I can assume that that is a specific wavelength of light. So chances are you're seeing the same thing. But there is no way to ever be sure if your brain works exactly the same as mine, I think. And by the way, guys, if you're watching this or listening to this and you think I'm wrong, please share that with me. I'd love to know, because these things make me incredibly curious. Because there's one thing that I realize when we're talking about what it means to be human. One thing that I am realizing more and more, and this is not a scientific research study I did, but it's something I am understanding by speaking to hundreds of people around their experiences, is that what we experience in a given moment is made up by our own mind. Now, that doesn't mean that there are no facts, but the facts are being filtered through our brain to the degree that I changed my entire childhood memories, to the degree that I cannot remember. So until I was 35, 40, I had memories of being extremely bullied at high school. I'm pretty sure that those were accurately based on facts. But then I met someone from my old class and she shared her memories. And all of a sudden, I see different things when I think about high school. I literally see different images, and I cannot feel as horrible as I felt back then, even when I look back at the situations. Now,
Could it also be here? You said everything we describe is that we compare it to something else.
yeah,
So if you are in high school and you're 15 years old, maybe you can have the experience that you're lonely and that you're outcast because all the others cling together and they are agreeing about things and you aren't. And so you're not part of the group. But maybe there are many people at the same moment that have the same feelings, but you don't know.
exactly. Which is, all this is so beautiful that you say that, because I think 10 years ago or something, we were doing a 1-hour workshop around your money or your life back then still. And then all of a sudden, the brother of one of my sister's best friends came into the room. And I was like, Thomas, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I saw you're giving a lecture. I thought I'd show up. And he was sitting there. And part of that workshop was me sharing a lot of memories of high school. And every single time I shared something and I asked if somebody could relate, his hand would go up and he'd be like, yes, oh, that was such a awful place. And I thought, I thought I was the only one having that experience. I actually thought you were one of the popular good guys and one of the people who was on the different team. And he said, no, it was horrible there. And I've heard that back from so many people since. Everybody was feeling like a foreigner in that school. But you don't know if you feel like a foreigner and you distance yourself from the group. The interesting thing is that there are always more perspectives to every story. And there are also facts, but there's also a way that we respond to facts that is as true as the so-called facts. And that is incredibly interesting. Now, of course, right, if we look at the Second World War and we look at what happened in the German camps, people were murdered. There are facts there. They were severely abused, severely ill-treated and murdered. That is a fact. There's no other perspective to it. And yet, there are people like Viktor Frankl who were in the camps who created new perspectives about life in the camp while they were living in it. And I find that incredibly interesting. So if we look at what does it mean to be human, a lot of people will share with me what it means to be human is to strive for happiness, to strive for success, or to strive for a good life or something like that, right? And everybody has their own version of it, but we're all kind of trying to get by in this human form. But more and more, one of the answers that's coming to me when it comes to what does it mean to be human is, and we've talked about this a lot on this podcast already, we have these two threads. We have the survival thread that's always making our internal brain system right. So for the first few years of our life, our whole brain is still being developed and it's being loaded with images. And nobody gets to say what images are loaded there. It's like a child is just absorbing like a sponge its environment, and it's loading its brain, and no grown-up can tell the child, well, don't keep that picture, just keep these. And it's just the brain is doing that itself, and it's just loading the files. And then later on in life, the brain is constantly comparing what it's seeing to those loaded files. And that can lead to an error. It can lead to a great feeling. It can lead to recognition. It can lead to new files. But we're constantly looking at, but what did I load and what did I not load? I read a study, and I forgot who did it, but it said that of all the information in every given moment, we're only capable of filtering 3% of that. That means that there's actually, of the 100% information in this room right now, we will only be able to process 3%. Now, to me, that's why 3, why not 6 or 30 or whatever. But I didn't do the study. I didn't do the research. But I fully believe that we're not seeing what we think we're seeing. We're seeing what we think.
Mm-hmm. Is it, maybe there's also a difference if you're in a room in your house where you know what's where and there's not moving that much except from a dog, and you're on a marketplace with a lot of people and you cannot see everything. What's happening?
Well, that, but it's also true that this is why it's so difficult to be in a country where we don't know the culture, because our brain doesn't have a reference. So that's why for the first days we'll be tired there. It might be amazing, it might be exciting, but our brain is building a reference bank for it. This is also why we can be scared of people who look different, not even because they might be dangerous, but because our brain doesn't know what signals to look for, and then it's just still building that.
But this is interesting though, because I listened to a speaker, and he's a psychologist, and he, to an audience, he showed different faces and expressions of faces, and he asked, do you think this face is aggressive?
Yeah.
And for some photos, the most of people there agreed, and some of the pictures, only half of just a few thought it was aggressive. So that means that what you are programmed to see as aggressive.
Exactly. Now the
means a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, And the interesting thing is our brain is being loaded with these files, and we create a survival thread that is constantly referring to those files and constantly looking at, am I familiar? How have I responded in the past? How did the situation evolve in the past? And this is also why we say, oh no, I'm not going to do that because I know how I'm going to respond. But realistically, you don't really know. We don't have a clue. But that part of our brain, that survival thread, is constantly analyzing, but all the options, and it's constantly analyzing, if I do this, that will happen. If I do that, that will happen. If I do that, that will happen. And it's constantly...
It's a prediction machine.
Trying to predict. Yeah. And it's impossible to predict. And if we want to live this life, we need to just take a step and be curious to see. So if we want change, right? Even if we want to change our bank account or a relationship, or we want to change how we feel in life, we need to allow that. We need to allow ourselves to feel good. But if our brain doesn't have a reference to what it means to feel good, or what it means to have a different bank account, then that survival thread will constantly be pulling us towards, this is what I know. It's almost like a barometer. Now, the interesting thing, what I believe, is that what it means to be human is to step back into the divine thread that created us. And that is, of course, our mom and dad created us, right? A sperm and an egg came together and they started replicating. That's what created us. So basically, our parents are God. And yet, of all those little cells that start in that very first moment, an embryo is formed. Our parents did not create the embryo. They created the initial spark of cells. And then what creates the embryo is a force that nobody understands that starts moving those cells. And through the moving of those cells, the cells decide by where they find themselves if they're going to evolve into a heart cell or an eye cell or a left toenail cell. So specialization of cells starts because of where they find themselves in the movement that comes first. Now, that movement is what I call God. And the interesting thing is that if we look at that movement, nobody knows where it's coming from. It's just moving. Because of the movement, wisdom is unlocked. And I believe what it means to be human is to have both of these threads. It's the thread of survival and belonging, the thread of, if I behave like this, I will be accepted by the people. I will respond to my environment. I will be able to keep myself alive in this planet that some people consider harsh and some people consider beautiful. But if we look at it objectively, we're on the planet of abundance, right? There is food everywhere. There is shelter everywhere. There is sunlight. There is life. There's oxygen. We landed in the best place in the entire universe. There's water. Everything is provided here. That's where we are. And we're being moved through this life. Now, what I believe our human life is about, and what I believe in a bigger picture what being human is about, is to get back to that thread of creativity, to the thread. If I read the Bible of we're created in the image and likeness of God, this is what I believe it means. It means that we're thrown into a body that needs to survive with all the fears and all the things around us, and the evolved brain and actually very evolved brain, but also the underdeveloped brain and the brain centers that are not finished correctly. We're thrown into that body so that we now can find our way back to that divine thread that moved us initially.
I have a question or some thoughts about it, because people like to make a differentiation between the body and the brain, but I guess the brain is part of the body, and it's maybe a more advanced part of the survival mechanism. So the reason that we have such a brain, like we have as humans, is because we could survive and fit to our environment. Uh, so that's the evolution of the body, and that's why we have such a lot of thoughts. And for me, I can sense that my thoughts are mostly or all even part of my survival thread. So that's why it's so hard for me to think about my soul or my divine
I think
thread.
so too.
Because if I only think about it, it's very hard to experience this. Or maybe even if I would feel a bit of it or get a bit of it, then the bigger part of my brain starts to criticize that or say this only imagination what you do or you're fooling yourself. And so how would you say can you experience this divine thread? Because my thoughts are always in the way to be
Yeah.
aware of it.
Well, that's incredibly interesting because um, so I'm not a brain scientist, but I did study a lot about the brain. And and actually the interesting thing is that my first thought is the brain is coming from the same clump of cells, right? So because of the movement, the brain cells are at a certain point starting. But then the brain has all these centers that need to be taught how to deal with emotions. And these brain centers are being developed by surrounding ourselves with grown-ups who are very capable of dealing with these emotions. So we surround ourselves with grown-ups who are dealing with fear, who are dealing with anger, who are dealing with love. And the way they are dealing with it, that is what our system starts to copy and to mirror. So then we are setting our system up according to the people that are very close to us because apparently they survived. So our whole system is being built around I need to keep myself alive until I am big enough to do it myself, and I need to belong. I need to stay in this group. So then, until we're 27, our biggest thing that we need to do is keep our access to the group of humans that we can fall back on and that will do whatever they need to do in order to keep us alive. So our survival thread will always win because if we don't belong to the group, we're going to die when we're 3 or 5 or even when we're 12, right? And today, a 12-year-old might survive. 100,000 years ago, pretty sure it wouldn't have. So our survival thread is what keeps us sane according to society. But our divine thread is what is constantly calling us into a bigger system, and it's constantly moving us. Now, when you say, how do I distinguish one from the other, and what is our brain even, the interesting thing is that our brain has all these ideas stored around what we need to do in order to survive between these humans. And it is always 20 steps ahead of any other action because, hey, I'm here today. So what I did yesterday wasn't that stupid because otherwise I would have died. So there is a deep programming saying, well, you can tell me I shouldn't drink alcohol, but still alive. So what do you really know? And that's just about a little thing like alcohol or cigarettes or whatever, right? This is why it's so incredibly hard to stop behavior or to change behavior because, hey, if I am here today, then it might not be that bad. So the interesting thing is what we need to do is we need to find our way back to curiosity, to playing, to just walking into things and responding to them. Now, ideally, and this is ideally because I don't see it happening a lot. So apparently it's not supposed to happen, because if it were supposed to happen, there would be a lot more proof of it. But if you look at our brain centers and when you look at child development in today's society, you would need 20, 30 people who'd be incredibly capable of dealing with these emotions around you as a child, keeping a safe space, safe boundaries for you to feel these emotions, to go through frustration, to feel anger without wounding yourself or others, so that your brain centers could develop to learn, so that you have the tools to step into life. And when there is anger, you can use the anger to respond to life. Or when there's fear, you can use the fear to adequately respond. There's no problem in any of these emotions, but we haven't developed the full capacity of them. Now, wait a minute, almost. If we haven't developed the full range of the emotion, then we will be afraid of the emotion itself. Because then we feel in our system, I don't know what's happening to me. I don't want this because I don't know if I will be able to process this. And then we'll stop ourselves. And that becomes not even a survival threat, but a paralyzing threat. And then all we'll do is walk around life judging everybody who's triggering us to feel. Now, the interesting thing is, if we look around in today's society, that's all we see. And now we can easily judge parents who didn't raise their kids properly, but we can also ask, how were they raised? My parents went through severe Second World War trauma. So my entire family and generations before them as well. So
and that goes for the most of us,
exactly.
This generation.
So
yeah.
They didn't have a chance. So if we look at what it means to be human, what I believe is that it means to find our own way back to that divine thread. Now, your question was, how can we find that?
So if I try to understand, if we had a chance, or we give ourselves a chance right now to develop these brain centers fully, so that we can handle all kinds of emotions without fearing them, and be able to have confidence because of we know that we can handle these emotions. So we don't cut ourselves off from certain experiences, and we are not prevent ourselves from feeling, but are curious towards feelings.
Curious to life, even.
Yeah, but that goes through the feelings, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the same. And then there's more curiosity and willingness to explore things, and that's the soul or divine thread. Or
I think it might be a little bit more complicated, but the interesting thing is, there is no right or wrong in life. There is just us experiencing ourselves. That's what it is. So we step into something, and that might feel painful, but we're able to feel the pain. So we're here to experience, not to create the perfect experience, but to experience. And not just to experience life, but to experience ourselves, to figure out who we are, to figure out what we're capable of, to figure out how we respond to things. And ultimately, to reveal God in that, to reveal that thread that started moving us on day one. We're here to reveal that thread. But that requires us to just take a step and figure it out, to let it out. So it's so interesting. If I ask people, if we talk about, is life a creative process, everybody will say, yeah, sure. But then if I ask, are you creative? Then somebody will say, yeah, no, I can't paint, or I can't play the piano. But creativity is not about painting or playing the piano. Creativity is about doing a random thing and then, just for the heck of it, figuring it out, right? It's about playing a note. Do you know what? If I add that note, I'm curious how that will sound. If I add that note, what will happen if I do that? Creativity is not about creating a perfect picture. It's about experimenting and being curious more, and being so curious that you will allow yourself to do it. And life is just that. So, but in order to create life, the tools we need are not made of red, yellow, and blue. The red, yellow, and blue in life are made of knowing and understanding our emotions. Now, the interesting thing is, what if life was here so that we can allow ourselves every step of the way to increase our capacity of understanding these emotions?
Yeah, well, what I think it's beautiful how you explain this, because it's really huge. It's such a understandable and comprehensible way of looking at life. So it's really opening up a lot, and for me that's really, I get it. And so, but at the same time, I also know how I am and where I come from, but I see a lot of people on the internet, but everywhere, using their free will, if they think about it in that way, but they use their capacity to make decisions in a way that they try to predict which path they need to go to make them rich, happy, successful, not failing. So they are also capable of making up all these scenarios and then choose the one that leads them to whatever, what their goals in life are. To travel the world, to have the most sensational experiences, and so it's not only, it's not to say that is wrong, but what would you say about that? Because that's also a possibility, and amongst people they that will not succeed in it, there are also people who really are capable or to direct their life in this ways. And
yes, but the interesting thing is, the success isn't in the result; it is in the process of creating it, and in the process of creating it, uncovering what you are capable of. And every single book and every single video we see of somebody who created a certain life or a certain way of living, it did not fall in their lap. It didn't. It just didn't. There was a process. Every entrepreneur you speak to who builds $1 million business has had incredible failures that they may talk about openly or they may not talk about, and some of them are trying to just bring out the, hey, I am a millionaire and you can be that too, and they forgot about those incredible painful stories. But it is the going through that almost birthing channel, right? We're being birthed through a channel that is incredibly hard to go through. We're being squished together. Our brain is being completely packed onto each other, and we're being birthed.
That explains a lot, by the way.
But the interesting thing is, we're being birthed through this channel that almost seems like it's impossible to do. Now, the interesting thing is, a friend of mine, she knows everything about this process. I don't know everything about it, but one thing stuck with me, and she said that being pushed through this incredibly small channel is what the body needs in order to thrive later. Now, she told me all the details. I forgot about them, but it made so much sense. We need the experience to be squished together in order to allow our body to relax. So then our kids had 2 cesareans, and this is why she told that to me. She said, you need to go to I forgot the name, not an osteopath, something like that. And we went there. Craniosacral therapist. And we went there together with our kids, and she did miracles on those kids, because she said if that didn't happen, the certain functions in our body won't be optimized. We need that experience of it being incredibly hard, being squished together, so that we can expand. And this is the restriction that we need, through which we will find our capacity. And that starts in childbirth, and it continues to go on. Now, in this time of AI and of all these things being so incredibly easy, we kind of lose the necessity to go through a birthing channel. Somebody told me the other week, I gave her journaling exercises homework, and she said, yeah, I'll use AI to ask those questions. And I said, excuse me? She said, yeah, I'll use AI and I'll ask AI the answers. And I said, but it's not about the answers. It's not about the answers. Yeah. It's about the process of going through the journaling and letting your brain let go of all these thoughts. And she said, yeah, but if I have the answers, I don't have to have all these thoughts. And it's so mixed up, because AI can do incredibly beautiful things for us. I'm extremely happy. But it's in the hardship of creating that we uncover who we are. And it is not in just the finished product. So then, in building a business, in going through painful processes, in going through puberty, I can see it in my kids. They don't want the solutions, they want the birthing process, but they will not ask for that.
So could you say then that life is constantly being born?
It's a constant discovery of a little bit more of our potential, a little bit more of our potential. We want to feel proud that we did it ourselves. And I was talking to another client who has a son who's not doing too well. And he said, yeah, we're trying to keep him out of all the hardships so that he has space. And I said, but what if the space is the problem? And we had that in our marriage. I was trying to do everything for you. In the first 2 years, I was trying to make the money, trying to make you happy, trying to do the kids, trying to get all the house cleaned up and everything. And I'm not saying I was doing everything right, but I was trying to make sure that you didn't have to do anything. But that made you feel like a burden. It made you feel like, I can't add anything here. Why am I here? And same with kids. If we
talk about what does it mean to be human, is we should add to the world.
We want to contribute.
Yeah.
And if everything is already contributed, then we get this sense of, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then either we become numb, or we go insane, or we have this feeling of selfishness that we see as well. Like, okay, apparently everything is supposed to evolve around me. And we have expectations of other people that are incredibly hard. Whereas I think, specifically if we look now, right, I don't believe that the state of the world is a problem. I believe the state of the world, and yes, there are a lot of problematic things right now. Wars, genocides, nature disasters, awful things. But I think the state of the world is helping us to figure this back out. It is actually, I don't know if there is a universe creating these situations. I think we did that. But what we're seeing now is that there is a restriction in our world that is forcing us to find our way back to that divine thread. And it's a birthing process.
Could it even be that because there has been a time, there was for 80 years in most of Europe no war going on, or the Western world? That's not completely true.
I don't know what Europe you lived in, but that's not my Europe.
No. It's not. But that we live in I was born in the 1969. So for me, life didn't show a lot of friction and frustration, because everything was there. There was food, there was education, there was people, everything was okay. And now I'm looking in the papers and hearing all things happening in the world, and I really think it's really threatening, and it's so maybe it's also because I didn't learn to be with that lot of friction, and that my system is not really capable to feel confident in such a.
No system is. Our nervous system is not wired to know everything that's going on in the world. And I don't know, and I seriously don't know. So if you're listening to this and you do know, let me know. I don't know if there are more terrible things going on today than 50 years ago. There was a Cold War. There were problems all around the world, but we didn't know about them. That doesn't mean that they were not going on. It means just that we didn't know about it. That is a very different thing. Us not knowing about it doesn't mean it was safer then. It means we didn't know about it. We are not wired to know about the state of more than 200 people. So reading these newspapers and worrying about the state of the world is not what we're meant to be doing. It's not what we are able to respond to. So that will paralyze our system. It will take us out because it will just feel like
our system wants to predict is running out of.
I don't know how to do this.
On tilt.
And the interesting thing is, I was speaking to somebody who is from Ukraine, and she said the best thing you can do is take care of the country that you are in. Stop trying to save us. And she said, yeah, we need a lot of things, but take care of your system so that our war can stay in our country. Now, that is a whole different thing, and that's a whole different podcast, right? But she said, you can't save us. You need to take care of you. And then if everybody does that, if everybody just stops worrying about the entire planet, and we bring our boundaries back to what we actually are capable of, I fully believe that we will have a better outlook on life. We will be able to take control back because we're looking at things that we can control. And it will be a lot easier to just live together.
Yeah, for me, it sounds like we have to go back to the era before even agriculture was.
To a certain degree, I think that wouldn't be a problem. Now, the interesting thing is we can't, because AI and internet and everything is there. But we need to get rid of our addiction to know everything. We absolutely need to get rid of our addiction. And this is why. It's not because nobody can do anything. Of course, there are people who are doing incredible things because they're seeing all these things, right? But the thing is, it is numbing us. It is paralyzing us. And we are here to express ourselves. We're here to express our divinity. We're here to add hope, to add light, to add our gifts, to add what we're made of. And we're not here to paralyze ourselves and to numb ourselves, because that is not helping to any of those conflicts. I see so many people who are saying, I don't know what to do. You know what? I'm just going to stick to a very small life because this is too much for me. And that's a different thing. So if we make our life incredibly small because everything out there is too much, and we just choose to paralyze, we choose to dissociate, then that's a very different thing than if I say choose to not know and show up. Incredibly different. If we don't know all of it, all the details of it, I don't read a lot of news, I don't watch a lot of news, I don't listen to a lot of voices, and that gives me the courage to just show up for the people that I meet, and that gives them hope, and that makes me a beacon of light and peace in today's world. Whereas if I would know all those things, I'd just give up. and make it small and stay on my little island. And that will never reveal your light. It will never reveal who you are, and it will never allow you to share the little thing that you are here to share, which can become incredibly big if you stop devaluing it. But we can only do that if it is safe to feel.
Yeah, so I think there's a tendency for people who are worried about some things happening, and it doesn't have to be far away. There are also things happening nearby.
Yeah.
But you say, instead of trying to predict and control and defend yourself to such tendencies, if you do this, you're going more in your survival pattern, and then there's less room for spreading light and spreading to contribute in a way that it's constructive and hopeful. And
And I'm not saying stop reading the news, because to a certain degree we don't live in a world that's fit for that. But don't read it first thing in the morning. Make sure that you're in a good place. Make sure that you are in awe of God, that you said your prayers, that you're looking at the sky and at the trees, and that you're like, I have a whole day on this planet. And then read the news and allow yourself to work through all the emotions that triggers. Because if we read the paper as kind of numb, like, okay, I'm going to stay out of it, but I want to know. I'm going to not allow myself to feel and be pulled into it, but I need to know. Then that will increase the wall around our heart, and it will make us dissociate, and it will make us paralyzed
or aggressive,
and it will make us feel incredibly lonely. Now, if instead you pray, you really allow yourself to be in awe of nature, if you just watch a candle and look at your loved ones every morning first thing and really enjoy the fact that I am safe today, that I have coffee today, that I am in this incredible space with you, that I have the best dog in the whole world. Yes, I really do. I know everybody says that, but our dog really is. And if we just allow ourselves to be in that space and then read the news and allow ourselves to regenerate our nervous system through each and every emotion, and then look at, what can I add today from my consciousness and from my light? That's incredibly different. But that means, and I was reading, so every morning at 7:45, my sister has a kind of a jam where we all listen to the same Spotify list and we dance. One of her friends sent an article saying that we need to dance. And it was a whole scientific-based article around what dancing does in our system. And I fully believe it. We need to dance our way through this age. We need to allow ourselves to move through it, not paralyze and ask AI questions so that we get answers that we don't know what to do with. We need to dance our way through it so that our emotions settle different in our system, and so that endorphins get unlocked, and so that we find the courage to continue to move in today's age with the divine thread. So you asked, how do we find that divine thread? And that is in very little, very small things, simple things like a very simple thing. A friend of mine said, yeah, I'll come to your house. And he didn't, of course. Then he got pulled into a whole line of business things, and my mind thinks, oh, do you know what? He's too busy. It's okay. We know each other. We love each other. True. But every time I have this hunch of, do you know what? I'm going to send him a text. Feels like stalking in the moment. But I sent him enough texts to actually get him over here. So last weekend he was here together with another friend of ours. And he said, I am so grateful for your determination. Thank you so much for your willingness to stalk me, because I need someone to pull me out of my survival thread. Thank you for doing that. And that's the divine thread. It is the constant thing of, you know what, I'm going to give you a hug. You know what, I'm going to go to the bakery and then I meet someone there. Or how we met, right? We met when I was 8 months pregnant. I wasn't planning on a relationship. I wasn't planning on anything. I was planning on having a walk on the beach. And we met. And a week later, you moved in. Nobody planned for that. And the divine thread is just these little things that to our mind seem like, yeah, what is that going to do? You don't know what it's going to do. And that is like adding blue to the painting you're making. You don't know what it's going to do. Except because you're present in it, it is changing your life.
Yeah, so allow coincidence and be curious.
Allow wonder.
Yeah.
Instead of constantly trying to figure it out, constantly trying to know what's going to happen if. My friend could have thought I was the biggest stalker in the universe. Yeah, but if I get these divine humps of, you know what, I'm going to send this, I'm going to send this, I'm going to send this, I do it. It's in those little things.
Yeah.
And that's wonder and curiosity and awe instead of to-do lists and guilt and horror.
Yeah, but the nice thing you said, it's dance is a very good example. It's a bodily experience, and so
allow your body to dance, not your mind to figure out the steps.
Yeah.
Remember our salsa lessons?
Yeah. But that's the stupid thing of doing salsa, because then you have to remember some things.
Or you just allow your body to dance.
And do another kind of dance. Yeah.
Who cares? It's about fun. Salsa is about joy. It's about releasing joy. That's what salsa is about.
Yeah, says the woman.
So we took salsa lessons, and after 2 years, we gave up because Jakko was trying to figure out the steps, and I was trying to get him to dance. Well, we would be better at it today.
I tried you to also practice at home, but there was no time. So
You were always away. Anyway, we might pick that up again. Who knows?
But yeah, I agree. Dance is a very good thing. Yeah.
Yes.
And music and painting
and just living and sitting in the sun and eating a croissant and really enjoying it. Yeah, there's gluten and butter in it. And you know what? We get to experience all of that. Did we figure out what it means to be human? I don't know. But I think this was a really, really beautiful conversation. And if you've been listening to this and you have questions or things to add, feel free to email us, send us a direct message. I would really, really appreciate your thoughts on what does it mean to be human. And this is not our last conversation about this topic. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have problems between this survival thread and this divine thread, we have a beautiful quiz called the Secret Self-Betrayal Quiz, and you will find it at sabotagerelief.com. So go to sabotagerelief.com and take the quiz. It takes you 5 minutes, completely free, and you might find some answers around how these two threads work in your life. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Tag us, share this with friends, tag your friends, and send us your questions, and we can't wait to see you back next week. Bye.
Bye.